YouTube, it's Brian Phillips. What do we have here? This thing, whatever it is, it's supposed to do vertical takeoffs and landings. We call this a VTOL, okay? We'll see if it works. Right now, 1002S, the factory setup. This thing comes ready to fly. All you have to do is provide 4 AA batteries. We're gonna see if it does what it says it can do. And I think it will, but it might just not do it as good as we want, okay? So vertical versus 3D mode. Vertical means that. This is like hanging mode, okay? So just so you know, I'm gonna go to that mode. I'm gonna go sticks down and in, arm it, and then go up. Okay, as you can see, we're in the air. There are trimmers. Okay, so we got some good bright lights on there. Let's go right overhead. Very nice. Reasonably easy to control. Don't think it would handle wind very well. How do I know, camera crew? Probably because we filmed it before and it was not so good. So how do you switch between modes? Go to the bottom and then it automatically switches and then it's still controllable. It yaws. It does not hold its bearing for altitude very well. I think it's supposed to, but it just kind of doesn't. I like that it's got some lights on the bottom. Those lights on the bottom will give you supposedly a warning when they run out of battery. Again, not really sure that works so good. And as you can see, we have low and high rudder setting, which is high and low rates. There's lower rates. There's higher rates, I guess. I don't know. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna go into the middle mode and press the button. Now it's gonna try to fly. I can tell you this, it feels weak. And you wanna know why? Because it's out of power. Wow. Kill it with 2. That's the legitimate flight time, fully charged, okay? So we have decided that this plane, or VTOL, we either got a bad battery or it just needs more power because that is not a long enough flight time. Now, you'll notice I pressed both of these buttons because there wasn't even enough time to really demonstrate this product. This is our, what, 3rd time filming?
3rd flight, I think, yep.
And we've experienced this each time, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and go back to vertical mode. We'll see if we can take back off. Let's hope it's just one of the 2 cells sagging a little bit. But my guess is our 2S 1000 milliamp hour battery that came with it is just not very good. Okay, sticks down and in. If that's all that's wrong, then actually a pretty cool product. Seems to be pretty dead-ish.
It's supposed to flash red when it's low, but we've never seen that happen.
And we've also seen it fall out of the sky in forward flight most. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go a little bit higher altitude, switch to forward flight mode from vertical. That means you go to this setting in the middle and then you press this to acknowledge. Let it, there it goes. Back to vertical. Why did I go to vertical? Because I didn't think it had enough in it to get where it wanted to go. So what I'm learning is that this thing just does not have enough oomph as configured. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try this again. I'm gonna go up to altitude. Guys, here I'm Brian Phillips, RC. We tell the full truth, nothing but the truth, so help us God. Okay, middle setting, press the button. Get some speed. You hear it? It goes to a lower setting when it shuts off the back fan. And then you have to kind of fly it like an airplane. You have to trade off altitude to keep flying. Now, it does actually fly pretty good. It's very fast. I do not want to go chase this in the grass. No. Now, straight to vertical. Pretty cool transition, and it did work. So here's what I'm learning about this thing. Dead calm, it's flyable. Does it have the power that we've experienced in other VTOLs? Holy cow, look, cows.
Oh, cows.
Lots of them.
On the road.
There are a lot of them.
Fun.
There are a bunch of babies.
Oh, they're
cute. Those are calves. Okay, well, we're probably gonna have to call the neighbor here pretty quick.
Probably.
But the truth is, guys, this is a really cool product if it worked like this each time. What we're gonna do is we're gonna show you exactly how it worked in our other experiences. I was pretty much recommending against it at the end of our 2nd flight. I'm gonna tell you the biggest problem, I think, is when you go to forward flight mode, you have to have enough altitude and you have to fly it like a normal plane, okay? Going to forward flight, watch the transition. And we'll just keep our altitude here. Those cows are definitely just wandering around.
Yes, they are.
I don't want them to come wander around our yard.
No.
I don't really mind seeing them at all. Watch yourself. That's forward into vertical. It does switch out of normal forward flight into vertical or hanging mode instantaneously. You don't have to hit the trigger button, okay? And the lights do make it good to see when it's not super bright out.
Yes.
But it sounds pretty dead to me. You hear it?
Still.
But it's not doing anything. So now there's also a button. What does this button do? I can't remember. Some sort of trick? Does it do a trick?
Or does it turn the lights on and off?
Oh, yeah, so you can change the light color, okay? So look at that, that's pretty sweet. So if you're flying with your buddies, you can switch the colors. So here's what I'm gonna say. Oh, there it is, it's gonna die, guys. Now red means it's gonna die, okay? If it's gonna die, I wanna see how fast it dies. Because here's the thing, both times that we've let this thing fall to the ground, it's been in forward flight mode, which means we don't have enough to keep flying, okay?
It recommends when it starts flashing red that you should land within 30 seconds. Otherwise, it will kind of land itself.
Okay, so let's see what happens then. Let's just watch it. I'm gonna get close to the ground so it doesn't break itself.
So you're not...
No, that was it. It just died, okay? So, that was our best experience yet. Admittedly, we didn't make any technical mistakes. And this is what I would explain as marketed to beginners, okay? A VTOL that's marketed to beginners needs way better documentation.
Yes.
Throw away the manual. It is useless. It will confuse you worse. Secondly, I think we should cram this 3S 850 in there and see what happens. Now, full disclosure, this IC2 is not compatible with an XT30. Okay, XT30 connectors are different. I want to see what's going to happen, so maybe we'll go a little bigger and we'll use this. Yes, I could cram this into the receiver, but I'm probably going to break the connector, okay? That would be closer weight match, but it's still about 25, 30, 40% more heavy than the factory pack. It's a very light battery.
Right,
okay?
it is.
So real quick, let's do it right now. We're gonna throw caution to the wind for you guys here on Brian Phillips RC. If it catches on fire, you will have already learnt what needs to be learnt.
But that was about 6 minutes of flight time.
6.
Which was better than we were getting the other day, but...
Only because it landed in forward flight, remember?
Yes.
Not because it was dead, but because like it just didn't have enough oomph.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a considerably bigger and a 3S battery. It might catch on fire and blow up. If it does, I want to know. I don't even think I'm going to be able to put the lid on, hon.
I don't think you are either.
I don't think it's going to fit. Or if it does, it's going to be very tight. Let's see if I can get it in there.
So are we just going to go topless?
No, we're going to just stuff this in.
Okay.
Stuffing it in, guys, for Brian Phillips RC. All right, got a little bit of rain coming. Vertical, sticks down and in. Let's see if it even arms. Okay. Oh, off. Back on, which is a goofy setup, but that's what happens with some of these ready to flies. Armed, now it might drift.
Okay.
Okay, if it drifts, okay, so there it is. We are technically flying, it handles the extra weight, it's a little bit herky-jerk. It's flying okay. Now, let's see if we can even do forward flight. Okay, clicking it now. Let's see if it does it. Here we go. So the 3S flight performance is a little bit better. It's kind of fast.
Really fast.
Not a ton of elevator. I'm gonna switch the rudder to the lower setting, see if I've got more gains, or not gains, but rates. Pretty good actually, not bad. That is really fast.
Yeah,
Terrible flight characteristics for a beginner, but honestly, it's pretty dang awesome. It's way the heck out there.
Yeah, it is.
Hope I don't have a flyaway.
I know.
So now, going to vertical, and then back to the other vertical. I did that to slow it down, by the way, guys. You hear it screaming? Sticks all the way down. I went to vertical, but I started by going to 3D mode, which made it slow down, like right now.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to bring it down. You can see it's finally starting to drop. Oh. Okay, well, it's probably not totally destroyed, but I think probably what happened is the ESC probably overheated. So we have now established for you that the 2S provided pack, which is this one, is probably just a little bit too small. Okay, camera crew and I are gonna carefully walk. Everything gets hanky-janky on the camera. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Camera crew is gonna try to walk softly. But as you can see, it's not broken 14 pieces. It just popped the canopy. I could tell the way it fell. It kind of fell into a flight characteristic, but it just happened to be upside down. I don't think it's on fire or anything, but let's see how it does. By the way, when you pick this sucker up, if you haven't given it a command to die, do it. You have to press those 2 top triggers. I have had this thing spring to life in my hand before, okay? It's disconcerting. You have to press both of those triggers, okay? So, looks like it's fine. It knocked the decal off. Oh, like, how does a decal get knocked off? So, also, full disclosure, one other thing happened in one of the flights, one of the servos got bumped out, okay? Like out of the pocket. I'm gonna stick back in the 2S and just see if it arms, okay? This battery is dead, it may not fly, but I wanna see if it arms to see if we burned it up. Because I wanna communicate to you guys whether or not the 2 and 3S compatibility, oh look, I broke that right there. So we'll have to re-glue that with some China glue. No big deal. It's not like a super aerodynamic issue anyway. Well, it started, okay. So I doubt it's broken beyond all repair. It's not foobarred.
No.
It's just...
It doesn't weigh enough to like damage itself.
Well, if it hit nose on, I think it might be a bigger issue. Okay, so we're gonna shut this off. You can see the raindrops, guys. Okay, we're turning back on, just see if it arms. It probably won't fly, but let's see what happens. Okay, so one of the motors is kind of screwed up, okay? So hit both triggers, kill it, and then let's just take a look. It's probably one of the left or the right, okay? Maybe one of the props broke. Hold this, please. Mm-hmm. That prop does not look broken.
This one looks weird, doesn't it?
What? No.
Is it popped up?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. This one is tipped a little bit. Now I untipped it. Let's see if that does it. Guys, look at the lines from the Yarbo. Isn't that awesome?
I know, it's amazing. Didn't do anything.
Okay, so we're gonna try this again. Sticks down and in. See if it'll take off. It's giving us a red flashing, so I doubt it'll go. Ah, dang it, I wanted to demonstrate if it's gonna work. Okay, so killing it. Both of those things just to kill it. We're gonna run in and get out of the rain and come right back. We figured we'd do a shower scene. I'm Brian Phillips, RC. Yes, this is a shower. And yes, it does work. Oh. So at the end of the day, does this thing do its job? Okay, I'm gonna let you guys be the judge of that. Do I think it's as good as I want it to be? The answer is no. I want a lot more flight time. I want a lot more margin on the power. And that's exactly what we got from the only slightly more expensive offerings that are available right now. However, this is smaller and it is still ready to fly and it technically does the things it says, okay? So not doing something well doesn't mean it's not doing it. But not doing it well is usually the type of thing that you want somebody that's reviewing RC products to tell you. My suggestion is, if you're interested in a VTOL, you've already got another VTOL, you've enjoyed it, you have a little bit of skill behind your belt, this might be fun. Do I think it's the end-all cure-all? No, I don't. Would I recommend this to somebody that has no experience? No, it's just too hard. It's too weird. And the weirdities are going to get you into circumstances that are difficult for the novice to be able to, you know, come out of.
Yes.
Surviving. The other thing too is VTOLs have always concerned me to a certain extent just because it's kind of hard to pick them up without getting your hands into a dangerous spot, okay? Now, I'm not saying you're going to cut your hands if you get this model, but you need to be aware that if you get this model, you need to be proactively trying not to get your hands cut because it may decide to start spinning as a function of its stabilization, okay? Because this does stabilize the yaw axis and forward flight. And so if it's stabilizing, then that means there's differential thrust involved too. So just be careful. And that would be just the left and the right forward facing blades, not the back one. But as you can see, every time I'm holding this, I'm holding in kind of like awkward ways. There isn't really a great way to hold it. So just a couple of my thoughts. Now, what do I really like about it? I like the size. I like the fact that they have these little spots that you can set it on its main tail for vertical takeoffs, except that we've never successfully had a vertical takeoff, have we?
We did inside.
Oh, yeah, we did, but it was like dead calm, and it sort of like wants to tip over. So I just feel like it barely gets the job done. It's like, I want to say that it's good enough. And that's probably exactly where we are on this. Mm-hmm. It's good enough. But do I want good enough in today's RC day and age? The answer is probably not. By the way, it broke both sides. Not the plane's fault, by the way. I was pushing it, and we did have a 3S pack in there, okay? Can we fix this very easily? Yes. I'm going to put some China glue in there. It's going to be closed. You'll never know it was broke, okay? Do I like it? I do, but I've had VTOLs that are really excellent. And we've had 3 or 4 of them that are all made in the same factory on the same production line, and they just have all different names, okay? Mm-hmm. It uses a 1300 milliamp hour pack. That's 3S, I believe, and not a 2S pack.
And it is a slightly bigger,
and it's a bigger model
wingspan.
By about 50% bigger, by the way. So if you guys want to see the competitive offerings, check out brianphillipsrc.com, understanding that we do work with different brand affiliates. And so if you want to find this, you should be able to look. Do we have like a VTOL tab?
Yes, I think we do.
It's sorted by type, okay? So we have like helicopters, fixed wing, water planes, the general aviation,
EDF
airliners,
jets,
EDF jets, that sort of stuff. But we also have it sorted by brand affiliate, marketing partners, that sort of thing. So you can find this. The Chinese one-offs are the hardest to find.
Yes.
Because there is no brand specific name. We barely know what to call this right now, and we're reviewing it.
And you might look at the link and it has one brand name, and you get
then
the
you
box
buy it
and it's
a
something
different
different,
thing.
but it's the same.
It's the same thing. It might be a different color scheme. It's going to have the same transmitter. And by the way, that's the other thing too. The transmitter's fine. It's nothing to write home about it. One thing I really like about it is it does have trimmers, so you can trim it. The drawback I see is that I believe the trimmers are going to trim all the modes. So like when you're in vertical flight versus vertical flight, which again, the nomenclature gets all mixed up on VTOLs, the trims are going to be very different potentially. So that leaves you in a wanting position. So my suggestion is if you're flying in forward flight, get your trims mechanically by making adjustments on these turnbuckles. And if you want more authority, you can go from the middle hole to the inside hole, or the middle hole to the inside hole. If you want less authority, because you find yourself over controlling it, go to the outside hole, and then go to the outside hole. Don't just do one side, do them both so that they're symmetrical, okay? In closing, one thing that this does better than any of the other VTOLs we've had in the past is you can switch a light color, which is cool. I don't think we've had that historically. There might have been like the Blade one, but even I didn't like the Blade one. It wasn't very good.
That one.
It was like one of our worst.
Yeah.
Which is very rare that E-flite puts out something that's not one of the market best, like one of the, in a peer comparison, peer to peer. They're usually one of the better planes. In this case, I didn't feel like it was. This is kind of in the same forte or the same arena, the same vein. It does the job, but it just doesn't do anything especially great, okay? Right. Now, what it does do good is that I noticed that these are not breaking like super easy. One of the things that broke on all the other VTOLs easily is you'd be in here doing crazy like close quarter stuff, which you notice I didn't do because I don't have enough control authority to do it. I don't have the confidence. I have the skill, but I don't have the confidence with the plane. You come in here and you'd hit something like that, and then this pivot would break. And it would be pivoting based on a linkage from a crappy little micro 2-gram servo, 2.3 gram servo, which is what these are, I believe. They might be 3.5s, but they're very small, okay? Small servos like that, plastic driven, super dinky motors, super dinky gear ratios, not much mechanical advantage, overheat super easy, strip out teeth super easy. Basically all the worst characteristics of a small servo, but That's because they're small. They have to necessarily be weak. Well, when you pivot a motor, it's a whole lot different than pivoting a control surface that acts as a pivot, a pilot operation to change the pitch of an aircraft, okay? When you move a motor, you're moving a torquey, Yankee object. So you need a more robust, heavy-duty servo, okay? So what are our complaints with this model compared to what our expectations were? Everything it did, it just barely got the job done.
Mm-hmm.
What are our successes on this model? It happens to be a little bit smaller and the configurable light controller or colors. Is that enough to justify the losses over here in performance? And I'm not saying it doesn't do it. I'm just saying it doesn't do a very good job of it. My answer would be no, okay? So my suggestion is if you really want a VTOL, get the bigger ones. They're not that much more money, but they're really fun. And they do a better job of pretty much everything they do. What this does better is it's probably less likely to rip into the wall, but it's not totally protected, okay? You can see that this penetrates past the edge, okay? Mm-hmm. What I mean is, if you were to hit something like this, you're gonna hit the prop into your drywall, okay? Some of them have a bigger wing, so the first thing that hits is gonna be the foam, or the tail section, or the nose, or the simulated canards. Keep that in mind if you're wanting to do a lot of inside flight and you don't have the skills, okay? Remember, the other thing is you're dependent on the flight controller. If the flight controller says no soup for you, you're crashing. It doesn't mean that you're a bad pilot necessarily, but a good pilot tends to stay out of circumstances that cause the flight controller to be to blame. This coming from a guy who's crashed brand new planes into trees on a routine basis. Okay? So, at the end of the day, my findings are, I still like it. Here's why. I have a lot of aircraft and I like to have a collection that shows the different positive traits and negative traits. You might not want it though as a viewer because you don't have 400 other ones, okay? If you want one, you want the best, okay? That's my take. I think you're gonna share my opinion. If you disagree, check out the links in the video description below. Buy one for yourself, enjoy it. It's a fun little aircraft. It is pretty robust. This one has stood up to a couple of different crashes, albeit they were self-induced crashes on pretty much all fronts.
Right. Self-induced by the plane, not by you.
Right.
Yes.
Meaning it was doing it itself. It wasn't like I was, decided to run into a tree or a shower or something like that. So is it cool still? Yeah, it's got the cool factor. Is it as good as I wanted? No. I'm disappointed. I wanted more. So if this were half its price or a third its price, I would think it's awesome. But I would still be disappointed, okay? So at the end of the day, stuff from China that's cheap and works really good is always surprising and awesome. Stuff that's from China and it's super expensive and it's really awesome is still irritating because it's really expensive. The problem is the world we live in, things are expensive that weren't once. Or things that were expensive are really expensive now.
Right.
And there's nothing that Brian Phillips RC can do about that at this exact juncture in time. So just keep all that in mind when you make your purchasing decisions. This is only a little bit cheaper than some of the better offerings. But those better offerings might have been sitting on the shelf in Merca before the tariffs went into place for this.
Right.
AKA the price point they were trying to hit, they missed it. And this became close to that price. So I think what happened was bad timing, and that's the reality of the world we live in RC. Let's not let the hobby die over some bad timing. Okay? Right. That's all I'm going to say.
Can you show really quickly in a tight shot so that I can show them the controller and then you hold it in the mode that the controller actually is? So if it's flat like this, that's
vertical. Vertical flight meaning like this.
Yes.
Okay? Then forward flight is like this. Those would go forward, but you have to then press this to acknowledge you're ready and it goes.
Yeah,
okay?
like
so you can
mode.
pass through that mode and it won't switch. Some of the more advanced ones will switch. So you got to be careful to just do it quick. You just go through it quick. So you just go like boom, 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 done. it doesn't have enough time to respond to that middle step because you've gone on to the vertical hanging step.
Which they call 3D on here,
okay?
right? Yeah.
So 3D is terrible nomenclature.
Yes.
It should not be called 3D. This should be vertical. This should be normal. And then the bottom or the top opposite should be forward flight. So what should happen is you start vertical, you take off, you switch to vertical flight, like they call it, normal flight, like a drone. Then you go to forward flight.
Right.
That's what it should be, because then there is no reason to have an acknowledgement button pressed needed.
But don't confuse the people.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
So,
because it is confusing.
It is confusing.
And the manual
and I'm going to say it one more time. Vertical flight like this, all the way up, means it takes off like a drone, okay? The middle mode, which is called 6G mode, is where you would fly an airplane, but you have to then also press this button momentarily, which is the right trigger, to start that process. At any point, you can go to either this mode and fly like a drone, push it forward to the top, or you can pull it back towards your belly and flip like this, and it will stop almost on a dime. It does a pretty good job in the transitory states. Mm-hmm. That is a hard thing to do. If for nothing else, this gets a pass because of that, okay? However, all the other ones do it too, okay? So I don't know who worked out this flight controller, but it's complicated and it works well. The first time I got a VTOL that actually worked, I couldn't hardly believe it. It was like, this is nuts. This is like voodoo magic, okay? And this is, we had safe and auto leveling and stabilization at the time. But in a price point that they were delivering it with multiple brushless motors, which that's the other thing too, is these brushless motors seem cheap because they are, okay? That might be part of the reason why we were spinning, okay? Mm-hmm. We might also got crap in one of those brushless motors, and once that gets knocked out, we'd be golden, okay? So we've given you a lot of information to chew on. We hope that this information is not seen as bashing manufacturers that try to do cool things, because that's not our intention at all. Our intention is to bring the full truth, nothing but the truth, so help us God, on Brian Phillips RC, so we can defend you as buyers from them out there in China that want to take advantage of, you know, unsuspecting buyers, okay? That's not to say that these guys are trying to rip anybody off. That is not their intention, I promise you. It's just sometimes things don't work as good as we want them to, okay? Fair? Mm-hmm. So we've hopefully answered all your questions. So now we're going to go into the Unbox build radio setup, where I will talk endlessly about batteries.
Yes.
If you're curious. Now, also, the other thing is, when you do decide to inevitably try this on 3S, if you find the correct 3S that will fit in here, also not upset it in the actual vertical flight mode, which is this mode, like that. They call it 3D mode. Then good luck. Because if you find a battery that's a lot heavier than the provided battery, you're going to have a hard time getting this thing to not fall over. Those drips sounds like some weird creature over there. And I just heard the frogs.
It's raining pretty hard.
Yeah, so it's raining again, guys. So here on Brian Phillips RC, we won't, well, we don't want to disappoint. That's why we put the shower scene in. And yes, this thing does come off, and it's awesome, and it works really good.
You can wash your feet. It's great for the kids.
Because like when we swim in the pond, we come up here, you can rinse off. It's super nice.
Everybody doesn't track grass through my house.
Yeah, which is really nice.
Yes.
So that's why we added the shower scene. It was not just for dramatic effect. So at the end of the day, we want to bring you guys this information so you can make good decisions with your limited RC budgets. Mm-hmm. And we hope that we struck a chord and will get you to come back for the next one, okay? Because there's always new content right around the corner on Brian Phillips RC. So when you are subscribing, click the bell for notifications so you can be notified of all the new content. If you want to support us, but you just can't fathom buying this for yourself, check out the links in the video description below if you want to do that. But if it's something else you want to see, check out brianphillipsrc.com or head over to bprc.me, same place, just short link. You can check out the supplies tab to see where the China glue is that I'm going to go use to fix this in 30 seconds, which is going to be super easy. And then if you want to find different batteries and aircraft and different stuff that we sell, you can find all of it on Brian Phillips RC, as well as links to all the video playlists for each and every of the thousands of products that we've reviewed over the years. Is it thousands? Yes, it is.
Yes, probably.
It is thousands. So
hundreds for
hundreds for sure, if not thousands. Okay.
Some planes have a lot of videos.
Yeah, we have a lot of videos on our
Back in the
original stuff. Okay. All right. So leave the comments down below if you have anything to say about this, or if you're concerned about the way we reviewed it, or think we missed something. We're always curious to hear what you guys have to say. And then also, if you want to support us in ways that are not buying this, we have Patreon for monthly support, as well as YouTube members for monthly support. Thanks for being monthly supporters. Or one-time donations through YouTube Super Thanks, and then PayPal, friends and family, if you want to do it that way. We also have a P.O. box if you want to send us something, but just let us know on an email before you do that, and you can find that in our About tab. Just click on my face and scroll through, find the information there, because we don't check it often.
No.
Did I leave anything out?
I don't think so. I think we covered literally all the bases with this one.
That's right.
Some.
We really did, and we try hard to bring you guys good content. Whenever we have a less than, positive video, it kind of like pains us, because we want to be fair to the people we work with that bring us these planes for review. Planes, helicopters, VTOLs, quads, leaf blowers, weed whackers, lawnmowers, whatever it happens to be. Because at the end of the day, there's a million easier ways to make a living than to try to sell RC goods. Because RC goods can be somewhat finicky, especially when you get into the higher tech stuff that's cheap, okay?
Yeah.
Because they're squeezing all this technology into this really small, inexpensive package, which means there's not very thick margins left over for anybody to make profit. So why would you do that? Because you want to sell like 1 million of them, okay? Well, congratulations. They have to be good to sell 1 million, okay? So self-refuting argument, I would say. And hopefully you guys can read it. We're telling the full truth, nothing but the truth. So help us God here on Brian Phillips RC. Not because it's easier, but because it's the right thing to do. So stay tuned. So much more Unbox next. Thanks for watching. YouTube, Brian Phillips. We're going to open this box. I'm sure it's going to be fun and exciting. Welcome to Brian Phillips RC. We open them, we set them up, and we leave no stone unturned with long format content here so that you can make your best RC decisions. We're gonna help you all the way along the way. And so today will be no exception. All right, what do we have here? I kind of know what it is, but I kind of don't know exactly what it is. I'm excited because the first time we got one of these, I thought, but then we ran it and it was super fun. So excited for this one again. All right, what do we have here? We have the Elfin Sky. Is that Elfin?
Whatever.
Elfin Sky, whatever, it's a VTOL. So it's a vertical takeoff or landing aircraft. And it looks like, oh, there's a manual. That's kind of weird. The manual was out of the box.
Yeah.
Probably because it's a sample, but I don't know if yours is probably going to come in the box, I would assume. Now, if you don't know what a vertical takeoff or landing, or also known as a VTOL, is, in this case, it kind of looks like a quad, well, except that there's 3 rotors that spin. Then these can articulate to go forward and go into a forward flight mode. And we've been super impressed with the ones we've done in the past, and we're hoping that this one is no exception, and we'll also have a great experience. But we're gonna find out really quick how this works, and hopefully we can fly it inside and outside. Looks like the windsock is out, showing a little bit of wind, but we'll show you how it does in the outdoor environment, hopefully as well. So if you guys are brand new to Brian Phillips RC, we open them, we check them out, we see if they're any good, and then you guys get to make up your own mind based on our findings. And if you want to help support the channel, check out the links in the video description below, and you can help support the partners that get us the aircraft to do the reviews as well. Okay, so we're going to just pull this out right now. This is called the A570. In typical Chinese fashion, they've given us some random name like anybody's going to remember or know to look for that number. First impressions, the foam is white. It's unpainted except for where it's jigged and painted. Nice looking water slicked decals. This points down. Very weird that that would be actually on the bottom. Brushless motors. Unmarked brushless motors, no less, and then lights here. Extremely small, looks like a 2.3 gram servo, maybe a 2.5 gram servo. I think they're 2.3 grams. Very small, and those servos will actually operate these televons. And I don't think we've had televons in the past. We've just had these. So that's interesting. So that should help with forward flight. And then we have these canards, but they're fixed.
And of course, we've got some props here. It looks like these pops are 3052R and 3052. And these are, oh man, I can't quite make that out. Something fan. Then of course, under here, you'll lift that out and there's a battery. So the first thing we need to do is get the battery charging. It's got an XT30, which is a pretty common size, and it looks like 1000 2S. That's pretty nice because we just did an aircraft that uses that same size. Now the Velcro is pulling out, so before, and by the way, be careful, the transmitter is back here. I'm gonna pull this out so I don't accidentally have that pop out on me. Okay, so that comes out of the bottom. And you can see cheap, very small sticks. They do unscrew, so if you need to make them a little longer, you're not going to be able to do that because they are just barely threaded on. That's an unusual build technique. There's not a very long protrusion of these sharp things. That is one of the biggest ways you can control these. It does fit the adult male hand fine, but I would say that this is a little bit smaller than I'd like to see. Fake simulated buttons are lame. Looks like trimmers, not sure if they actually do anything. Large or small rudder amount. Okay, well that's fine. It's kind of a stupid way of saying it, but I understand the rates. Vertical mode, 6G mode, or 3D mode, okay? So I'm not sure exactly what all those are gonna be, but I would assume vertical mode means vertical, and then I would assume 6G means just like a normal flying mode, and then 3D means like unlocked. And then there's a button and a button. I'm assuming there's some sort of a technique for doing tricks. And look, they actually have a safety screw in, so we'll have to take that safety screw out after a minute. The cool thing is it does come with the necessary tools. So let's talk about those right now before we continue any further, because I want to get the batteries charging as we discuss the rest of the unbox. So this is your standard Chinese charger. Looks like it puts out 7.4 at 1.3 amps. Let's get this out. The Velcro is pulling. That's what I was trying to mention earlier as well. Oh man, you got to be careful about that. You see how it's wanting to yank those wires out? Those are lights, so I don't think it's going to be of major consequence, but just be careful about that, okay, folks? Looks relatively serviceable, and then there is a plug that's back here that's tucked in. That's, of course, the female plug that goes back to the ESC and flight controller and receiver. Looks to be right here. It's like a satellite receiver, probably SRXL or some such thing. And then you can get in there. It's got accessibility, plastic build around all these. Of course, like I said, I want to get this battery charging. So let's do that before I get distracted again by findings. Here on Brian Phillips RC, we don't mean to overwhelm you with battery technology and battery discussions. But at the end of the day, this hobby has two things that get people hurt: batteries and props. Obviously, this prop is much more dangerous on this F7F from FMS than what you're gonna see on this small prop. The difference is this has a sophisticated flight controller in it, and that necessarily doesn't, because this thing has to do weird things to fly vertical and horizontally and forward in all these different ways. There's a little bit more ambiguity as to exactly what's gonna happen. So just use your best judgment, protect yourself from props, protect your eyes and your hands, and your kids' eyes and hands from props. I actually was flying a VTOL once, and a brother-in-law tried to stop it from sliding across the counter or some stupid thing. I can't remember what happened, ended up getting cut pretty bad. We have only had 2 injuries over the course of the 10 years we've been doing. That's one of them, which was kind of not my fault. It was his fault. But then the other time I got cut working on a Twin Commander Ultra Micro. And I was doing some sophisticated stuff with 2 receivers. It was very weird, and I ended up having the prop start on me, and I got a very small cut. But I'm lucky because I deal with a lot of big props. I'm also careful, and that is the only way to really keep yourself safe. So safety number 1, batteries, okay? Use a provided charger. If you're not sure, make sure you're in the area and you are cognizant of what's going on around, because lithium polymer packs are soft-sided, so you can see the cells here, okay? There's nothing inherently dangerous about this battery except that it's a little bit less protected than say a AA or a 9 volt or something like that with a little bit more robust, harder case, okay? These are necessarily lighter because we have aircraft involved, okay? If it was a lithium polymer pack that had a hard case, like on a car or a truck, you would have a much more hard case that would help protect the battery. but many times, or a lithium ion style pack. This one might actually also be a LiPo, but you can see there's the round cells, a little bit more physical strength there. So just be careful. If you ever see them start to puff up and start looking like they're round instead of square, then this is when you start to kind of make the decision that your battery is starting to wear and tear, because it's gonna puff. And that's why harder packs are a little bit stronger and a little bit more resilient. And when you get a brand new pack, they're gonna tend to be nice and crispy and sharp edges. This one's starting to get a little bit of a bulge in it. You're gonna find that when you leave them charged instead of putting them into storage charge. Whereas here's an example of a brand new pack, it's gonna be nice and flat. You have a little bit of bulge just because of the nature of the pack, but it's gonna be mostly square, okay? Here's this one. This one's 1000 milliamp hour. Of course, they've kind of got the rounding over the edge, but I'm talking about this surface here. When it starts to bulge out, like a balloon getting blown up, that's because there's chemistry that's happening in there that's undesirable, okay? So now, plug this into your own. This is not provided. This is a 65 watt Ruco little adapter. It's got USB-A, USB-C, and USB-C, so it puts out a lot of wattage. That's why we like to use this. And you plug this in. Here, I'll flip it around the other way so you guys can see. It's got a flashing, kind of like a slow heartbeat flash. And then this is a Hextronics balance lead. Okay, so we'll plug this in. And it's keyed, so it only goes one way. And you'll notice there's 3 wires. And if you're brand new to the hobby, you might not understand. This is a balance charging port. Okay, and then this is the discharge port. You're gonna notice that the leads are about the same size on both sides, but if you get up to a bigger pack, let me give you one example. Let's show you a real big pack. Okay, so this is a pretty big one. This is a China Hobby Lines 6000 milliamp hours, or 6 amps, 6 amp hours, 70C, and it says 6000 milliamp hours here, 70C, and this is 22.2 volts, which is a nominal voltage, at 133.2 watt hours, okay? So you notice that this is a balance lead, just real similar to this. It's also a Hextronic style balance lead, but this just happens to have more wires because there's more cells. This is only 2 cells. You can kind of see through here. This happens to be, is this one a 6 cell? Yeah, that's a 6 cell, okay? So there'd be 7 wires. So the most positive is here and the most negative is here. So this is one cell, 4.2 volts when charged. This is one cell, 4.2 volts when charged. This is one cell, 4.2 volts when charged. This is another cell, 4.2 volts when charged. And then this is the top cell, 4.2 volts when charged. And when you add all those together, then you get your nominal voltage. And how do you add those volts together? You go in series. So this plus and minus, so this is minus, this is plus. This is the minus of the next and the plus of the next, and so on and so forth. And then these are parallel. So this is actually at the same contact point, and this is at the same contact point. So if you were to tear the battery apart, it would look a little something like this. Okay, this happens to have a smart circuit in it, which is a battery management circuit. But if you were to omit that, that would go straight to the cells instead of going through a battery management circuit. So that is why we like smart batteries. Smart batteries can do without having a balance lead. This one's got a little life on it. You can see it's a little rounded. This would be getting toward the end of its life. This has an extra data line, and it only has a main discharge lead, different style plug called an IC3. And these are the types of things we're going to teach you on Brian Phillips RC. In terms of battery, this thing's charging. How do we know if it's charged? Good question. I'm going to use a testing tool here. Of course, it's been plugged in for just a minute, so it shouldn't be much from where we started. We're going to plug it into this tester, and it says it's at 7.91 nominal volts, 70%, or about 3.95. They usually ship these at about 3.9 or 3.8 volts. Storage voltage is 3.8 volts. Fully charged is 4.2. Fully discharged is about 3.2, 3.3, somewhere in there. I will sometimes draw them down to closer to 3, but it is harder on your packs to over discharge them. And the way they discharge, they start at 4.2 and they operate down to about 3.3. Then they drop off like a brick, okay? And so what happens is, because there's 2 cells We want to operate them in that operational range and not in the range where it's going to drop to nothing really quick. Because if there's not enough amplitude of current, it's going to drop off like a rock and your motors are not going to be allowed to spin because you won't have enough power to run them, okay? So just like any other motor or electronic device. So not to get too deep into the weeds, but this is what we do on Brian Phillips R. So you want to equip you guys as you learn to be part of the hobby, okay? So we're going to plug this into the balance charger and it's going to start charging. So it goes from a flashing light to a solid light. Now, if you're like me, you're going to end up with multiple chargers. We have a charger here, we have a charger here. Look, there's a mower mowing my front yard. Look at that. Oh, that's got a big old battery in it.
Yeah, it does.
That's our yard bar. So we also have a charger here. We have a charger here, charger, and we have more chargers than that by a tune of like 1,000 of them. Okay, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that. I know a lot about charging batteries. I know about maintaining batteries, and it's a pain in the butt. So as you start into the hobby, build a few good habits, and the habits are this. If you're gonna use a battery, charge the battery before you use it. I know that that's tough. That means, I just got home from work. I really want to fly. It's dead calm, but the sun's going down. Charge it quick, get it going, get yourself changed, ready for the evening, and then go fly as quick as you can. The problem is if you use this charger, you can't charge it very fast, okay? Because you're gonna be limited to whatever this thing does, okay? So let's show you an alternative, okay? This is a smart charger. So it will handle smart batteries where you just plug them in and it goes because there's data lines that tell it, hey, I am this size, do the things that I need to be done and charge at the rate that my owner told you to charge me at, okay? Well, on this, it's a dumb battery, so you have to set it up. Also, it's got a different type of plug. This is an XT30. So I have little adapters. In fact, I have an XT30 here because I'm using XT30s on one of the helis I'm flying a lot right now, okay? So now that XT30 brings me up to an EC3, not to be confused with an IC3. This is an IC3. It's got the extra data line right there, that one. And so we don't need that pin. But ironically, the EC3, which stands for E-Flight Connector, has a channel by which you could pass a data line through if you happen to have one. Okay, so now we can plug this in. I was using this with some JST plugs last night as well. So I'll just plug this into one of my 2 channels. It populates the screen with some data. Then I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna stick it into the balance lead all the way to the left because that's where the negative is. And this is a really bad picture, guys. On all these chargers, there's different ways to do it. And you guys see how there's like a little line there? That means negative, and then it's got an arrow, but it's a really bad descriptor because they silk screen this with white on black. A lot of times it's easier to tell on other chargers. Here's an example. On this particular charger, it's also black, but look, instead of silk screening, they have it's pressed into the plastic,
yeah.
Okay? So it's just another example. Very nice charger, by the way, very expensive, 8S charger as well. This is only 6S, but it's 2 200-watt chargers. So now you can see on the screen, it shows the different values. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and press start. Then I'm gonna go up here and I'm gonna set the charge rate. So that's 1 amp. Or 1,000 milliamps, and this happens to be 1,000 milliamp hours, okay? So it already detected that it's 2S right here because it can tell, and we can hit start. Or if I want to charge faster, I can go up. Now, if I was going to charge at 2C, that'd be 2 times 1, which is pretty easy to do. Task timeout. Okay, so if you get a task timeout, that's an unusuality of these smart chargers. So I'm gonna turn it off, let it de-energize, and then I'm gonna turn it back on, and I'm gonna let it boot, because this actually has a small computer circuit in it. Can you trade sides for me, please? All right, so now that it's booted, I'll plug this back in. You can see it populates the screen. Then I plug this in. You can do it in either order. I'm gonna press this, and I'm gonna hit start. Sometimes, with task timeout, we've found that it's usually during the boot process, if I hurry up and plug in the port before it has a chance to boot, and evidently if you sit there and wait way too long, it must have freaked out, okay? I've never actually had to do it with a dumb pack. So this is an S2200, very good charger, and that's our experience. It's been very good. And this is why I like smart batteries. Let's say I want to use this particular battery. Let's say I want to use this one, okay? Watch how hard this is. I'm going to take out this adapter that I don't need. I'm gonna flip this up. Watch this, look how hard this is, guys. Plug it in. It's gonna start. I don't even have to set anything. It's just going to do it. Now, the biggest safety issue that you're gonna run into, and remember guys, this is an Unbox build radio setup. You've already seen the meat and potatoes that you wanted to see when you saw this thing fly. Most people are here because they wanna learn more, okay? So the second half of the video on these ready to flies is where we get into meat and potatoes. These smart batteries automatically discharge themselves. So like I said, you charge right before you go so you can keep from having your packs puff quickly. Now, yes, you're gonna eventually have a few packs that look like this if you fly long enough, because over the years, you're gonna charge and discharge them a bunch. You're gonna charge them, sometimes you're gonna use them right away, and then other times you're gonna let them go, okay? The smart batteries are gonna bring them to a more chemically stable state. And so they're gonna be less reactive if they're discharged, which is 3.8, or in this case, if it's a Gen 2, it's 3.9 volts. 3.8 volts is for Gen 1, 3.9 volts for Gen 2. The way you can tell the difference between a Gen 1 and Gen 2 is this is a Gen 1, it's got a balance lead, and it's got the main discharge. A Gen 2 is not gonna have the balance lead, okay? So you can tell it's just got the main lead. Why is there not a balance lead on the Gen 2s? Because the balancing circuit is bigger and more robust and more sophisticated. So, because they have larger heat sinks and capabilities, they don't need the balance charge port anymore. So when you plug it in, this thing says, okay, go ahead and charge, blah, blah, blah. Don't worry about asking about the balance lead. I can also just force the voltage in and let that battery management circuit handle all the details, even if it has a balance port on a Gen 1. But you have one additional step you have to acknowledge. Okay, so that's a very detailed view of how these batteries work. What are you concerned about when you get into the hobby? Get the right size battery, get the right cell count. So this is a 2S, meaning there's 2 cells in series, okay? And there's also times where you're gonna use cells in parallel. Parallel adds capacity together. So if you have 2 5,000 milliamp hours, 1S's, let's just say for easy figuring, that becomes 10,000 of usable. If you have 2 1S 5,000s in series, then you have 5,000, but you have more voltage the whole time, okay? So series adds voltage together and it becomes cumulative, but you keep the same level of capacity because you're gonna consume them all at the same time. Whereas parallel makes more, it's more capacity. Did I say that backward? Yeah, parallel is gonna be more capacity.
Yep.
So you actually be adding them together. So like for instance, here's 2 batteries, okay? Think of it like this. When you have a parallel, you're like putting them together, that becomes a bigger battery. It's more of the same. If you put them in series, you're ending up with this one, but you're ending up with twice as much voltage, okay? In parallel, you end up with the exact same voltage, but more capacity. Okay, catch me if I'm saying that wrong. I just want to make sure I don't confuse people. So if you are confused, don't fret because you're not alone. A lot of people get confused about the difference between series and parallel, okay? So now one other thing you can do, as you get involved in the hobby, you'll run into different adapters. This is a series adapter. So you can see it takes, this one would be the one that you would take a battery plug into and a battery plug into, and then this would go to the device like the airplane, okay? So it takes the positive from here, comes from the negative of there, and this is the positive of that, goes to the positive of the output, and then the negative of this goes to that. So it's gonna use both of those batteries simultaneously in series, okay? The same would be true here, except that this is a parallel adapter. So this is gonna add the capacity of 2 packs together. And you'll notice that they are different looking connectors because they are different applicationally. This would take 2 4S's and keep it as a 4S, but add them together. This would multiply the 4S's into an 8S, but it would be the same capacity, okay? All right, hopefully that doesn't confuse you any worse than you already confused when you started this video. But at the end of the day, here on Brian Phillips RC, if you didn't get a little confused, we're probably not teaching you anything new. And don't worry, with soak time and practice, and effort and repetition, you'll get this all down in no time, okay? That's what we're gonna help you do. So some spare props, interestingly enough, it only came with 2. I'm not sure why it didn't come with 3. It seems like it should have come with 3 if there's 3 props, but there's one that goes correct and one that goes incorrect. It's kind of a stupid way of saying it, but one's gonna go counterclockwise and one's gonna go clockwise. So counterclockwise is normal, clockwise is abnormal. So that one's gonna be like a reverse. That's why it says R, okay? See how it says R? That 30-25, or does it say 30-52?
30-52R.
So that first dimension speaks to the diameter. The second dimension speaks to the pitch of the prop blade. And then that R speaks to the fact that it's reverse, meaning it's going reverse, which is sort of annoying because think about it. Counterclockwise is normal.
Yeah.
Clockwise is reverse. Here's why. Let me confuse you some more. This is counter-rotating blades, okay? So I can't spin them because I got helicopters all over the place. But this one's gonna spin in and that one's gonna spin out, right? They're gonna both spin in toward the prop, toward the center of the fuse. But this one is gonna spin, and this is always when you're facing it, okay? It's gonna spin that way to pull the plane forward, okay? So it's going counterclockwise. And I could find that one. This one is gonna spin counterclockwise as you're looking at the plane, okay? Remember, how do you tell what direction the blade goes? Look at the print on the prop. It's gonna tell you what direction it goes. So no, you can't just take this prop and flip it upside down and put it here, it won't work. Even if it was going the correct direction for the pitch of the blade, it would be hugely inefficient, so it's not gonna balance. So you'll get more lift on one side than you would on the other, and it will cause all sorts of asymmetry and problems, okay? So, lots of interesting things to learn on one simple product, which is a VTOL, a vertical takeoff or landing aircraft in this case, okay? So, it does come with a screwdriver. So getting back kind of the review part of this video, we're gonna continue reviewing. Here on Brian Phillips RC, we've always been about educating an audience of future enthusiasts, okay? If you're a returning enthusiast, we're gonna help you too, okay? Because we firmly believe that the best way to keep this hobby alive, viable, and fruitful for everybody involved is to teach everybody how to get into this hobby and find success. Because anybody can tell you, buy this, buy that, you know, this is the best, whatever. We're not gonna lie to you, we're gonna tell you the truth, and we're gonna try to bring some real value to you here on Brian Phillips RC, because that's what we do. At the end of the day, there are a million other influencers, and on YouTube there's probably, I can think of 10 that would tell you to buy whatever they're reviewing, even if it's the biggest piece of trash you've ever touched in their life. We're not gonna do that to you. That doesn't mean that we're not gonna say, this is cheap, so it's trash. That's expensive, so it's good, because that's just as big a lie. And we don't like that. And we don't like the direction that the hobby will go with that regard. And so you're gonna find on Brian Phillips RC, we tell the full truth, nothing but the truth, so help us God, which is annoying to listen to over and over again, but it is actually true, okay? And by the way, in the influencing business, it makes a lot more sense business-wise to just say, buy this, 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 buy this. That's why you hear most people on YouTube saying, buy this, no matter how crappy it is, okay? 4 AA's go here. By the way, if you like that concept, if you like hearing the truth rather than a line of BS, leave it in the comments below. Also smash the like button, because we do have to pay the price for that. It's a lot easier to sell something if you don't mind lying, okay? All right, so the canopy's off. We're ready to receive the battery. Is there any special precautions we need to take on this? To be honest with you, the only precautions I was gonna say is just point out a couple of details too. Plastic over the corners, and that is because you can actually take off vertically with this.
Oh, nice.
Okay, which is pretty cool. And you can take off horizontally, evidently, or you can land horizontally. I think my inclination would be to take off like this. My hope is this is going to work well enough that I'm comfortable to take off inside of this airspace. We have 16-foot ceilings in this room to the very top of the peak. And beyond that, it is lower in every direction, but obviously with the vaulted ceiling, its dimensions are all over the place. But we have a large 82-inch fan that's blowing around air, and it's not unusual for us to have air currents. And so this will be a good test for the viability of this aircraft. Now, if you're brand new to flying RC aircraft it might make better sense for you to go outside to test this, but make sure that you pick a day where it's nice and calm so that you have the best chance at success. Also, take a minute to evaluate the manual. Read this page especially.
Charging and battery cautions.
Read this one for me.
During charging, it's quite normal for the charger and batteries to heat up.
See, reads Chinese. Okay, and then look. Oh, this is gonna tell us what we're gonna do. Okay, so large and small motivity. Oh my goodness.
Geez. That's a new one.
Function key. Click on the body's iridescent light color. Long press to turn off the light and then click for full on. Okay, so that is speaking to this button. So lights.
Okay.
And then this one, 3-axis vertical mode. No, this is function key 2.
We don't know what function
We don't know
key
what that is.
2 does.
Oh, there is trim. There is trim. There is trim. That's nice. Oftentimes there's not trim on these. Directional joystick, forward, backward, left, right. Okay, so this is the throttle and or vertical control, depending on what direction you're going. This is going to be yaw, so it's going to pivot this way. This is going to go up. This is going to go down, and then of course this is going to roll to the left and roll to the right, and then yaw forward, or excuse me, not yaw forward, but lean forward, lean back like a heli. But if you're in forward flight, that would be the elevator, aileron, yaw, yaw. So it's going to depend on the position that you are in, what the sticks do. But just think of this as an orb, okay? The orb is gonna generally be controlled the same all the time, okay? So this orb is flying along regardless of what direction it happens to be sitting. When you press the stick forward, the orb is gonna fly forward. When you pull this stick backward, it's gonna pull back. When you roll left, it's still gonna roll the orb left. It's gonna roll right. When you yaw, the orb is gonna move, okay? So if you think of this as an orb instead of like an arrow, it might help you to get that through your mind. But the best way to get it through your mind is take off and let it just fly, okay? Now, a couple things to keep in mind. When you have an unusual shaped aircraft like this, you might find that it's a little bit challenging with orientation, okay? I find that this is a lot easier than a drone, okay? Do we have like one of the kids' drones right here close by? Is it in these drawers?
There might be one in one of those drawers over there.
So here's an example. Our kids have these drones, right? When you see this drone, just looking at it from a distance, you can't really tell what direction it's flying. Okay, so obviously it's gonna fly in a flat configuration. There might be a little bit of leaning, and I happen to know which direction this one goes because I have flown this before, okay? So it's gonna fly like this, and it's gonna turn, right? So I can orient that in my brain, but I've got a lot of experience with this sort of thing, right? Okay, same thing with this one. Here's another example, okay? So you can kind of tell because they've installed a canopy, or at least something that looks like a canopy, so you can tell it flies forward, rolls left, and all that stuff. And if you're a boy and you played with toys like this as a kid, or if you're a girl that played with aircraft as a kid, I've always found that helicopters are easier to orient because you can tell kind of what direction this helicopter is flying than a VTOL or a quad, okay? Now, I think this VTOL has a good body shape that helps kind of identify what direction forward is. Mm-hmm. So that's something to keep in mind when you're making your considerations on an aircraft, but I do wanna see how it performs, okay?
I was noticing here while you were talking, this says flat flight mode to switch, press function key 2, which is this
so you have to
here.
press this.
Yep. So it's in vertical mode normally, but if you want to change to flat flight mode, you have to push that function key. I don't know when or how.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that's going to work.
So, but that's...
But it's important to understand that there may be a sequence of key presses to go and take off, fly around, and then flip. Now remember, you don't want to flip like this and start flying forward and go like smack into the wall, because even though this is made of a resilient sort of foam that's got a little bit of give to it, you see this, how it bends? This body is not going to tolerate hitting walls. It's going to break, and it's going to break, even though this is resilient and strong, that's not what breaks. What breaks is the pivot points on these things, okay? So our experience has always been when these break, I don't understand how they do that actually on this. I can't tell. Usually there's a servo, but you see how that thing pivots?
For the
It's kind
pivot
of
mechanism?
different. Yeah. It's almost like the servo is built into this body or something. But either way, that's what we have found to break on VTOLs. And we have, what have we had, like 4 or 5?
Yeah, probably 4 at least.
And every time we do them, I think, I hope this one does better when we do have an accident. But we've always thought that is incredibly cool. Also, the ones we've done in the past had bigger batteries, but this is a smaller aircraft. I think we had like 1,300 milliamp hours, and they're usually 2S.
This is the smallest one,
This is a
I would
smaller
say.
option.
And it's a different brand.
But I like that it's smaller.
Yeah.
Because I like the fact that this is small, and you can pack it back up in the box, and you can bring it where you want to bring it without fear of it breaking on you. Truth be told, I don't usually rebox aircraft, but it is nice that this one will go back in without any modifications. Just remember that you want to get it into the right flight mode so that the props will fit, okay? So,
Right.
also, this foam and packaging seemed to do a good job getting here. There wasn't any damage.
Yep.
The damages that we saw were pretty standard corner edge curls, okay? So lots of considerations. I think this is probably a pretty good value. What we're gonna do is we're gonna grab some 4AA and come right back. All right, so we got 4AA. These batteries are simple. Flat goes to the spring, flat goes to the spring, flat goes to the spring, and flat goes to the spring, okay? Now, one thing to keep in mind when you pop this on, if they have a screw, sometimes this clip is a little weak, I've found. We had a plane we did the other day and it kept popping off on us. So I like to do this test.
Yep.
See what happened? That is not acceptable. So what I'm gonna do is I am going to push those in, get them all pushed into position, and I don't wanna dink around with getting a screwdriver out. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take a piece of tape, and yes, you could do this a million different ways. You could just put the screw back in, but I hate wasting my time getting screws out like that. So I'm just gonna do this. I mean, you're watching Brian Phillips RC,
So you're
probably
wasting
not
time is not of your
time is
concern.
not an issue for you. Okay, so I'm just gonna do that. And you're probably thinking, why did you do such a big piece of tape, Brian? Well, the reason I did a big piece of tape, and you might not, is because I'm gonna write on here what the heck this is. What is this thing called? Or what does it say on the aircraft?
Yeah.
Because it's a VTOL.
Put the number at least, because that's
What is it?
we can at least see. A570.
It's an A570?
Yeah.
A570.
VTOL.
Hey, can you point the camera at what I'm doing?
Oh yeah.
So A570, you see that? VTOL. Why do we do that? Because we have hundreds of these things.
Yep.
And if you have 4 or 5, you'll still find that it's incredibly annoying to try to remember which freaking remote controls what product.
Yeah.
Give them a shot.
Because
right
when
here.
your kid wants to fly a random helicopter,
This is just one
this is
spot.
just what lives upstairs.
Okay. And believe me, there's way more.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest reasons why you might want to think about getting a multi-protocol transmitter. I just don't want to learn it for a ready to fly like this because these typically are fine.
Yeah.
They're well served by these transmitters and the cost basis is so minusculely different. The other thing too is keep in mind when you order these, if there's an option for more batteries, get more batteries because they're almost always dirt cheap batteries compared to what you're gonna do to go find. Like if I wanna find another 1,000 milliamp hour battery, which by the way, this one's done. We only put in 140 or 187 milliamp hours, okay? So that means that on 1,000 milliamp hour capacity battery, we only had to top it off with 187 of those said milliamp hours, okay? And this is a better current handling connector than like a JST, okay? So a JST connector is like this, okay? That's not gonna handle the same level of current as an XT30, okay? This is supposed to, the rule of thumb is like 30 amps, okay? You can handle a lot of power handling with that little connector because it's got a lot more contact area than you would with a JST. A JST connector is very small, okay? But my only complaint with XT30s is that they don't have the same dimensions on the plug as the newer version that's getting popularized in smart packs because the dimensions are off on these. You see that? It's a little bit wider. Now I can use an IC3. Here's an example of an IC3. I can cram this into an XT7 XT60. So this is an XT60 size. And they will go together. It doesn't look like they will, but the pin size is the same and the socket size is the same. But it's just the plastic takes a little extra effort to get in there, okay? So just keep in mind, that's my only complaint with the XT30 compared to the IC2, which is the little brother to the IC3, which is the little brother or sister to the IC5, which would be similar to the XT90, which is like this. And guys, this is why you come to Brian Phillips RC, because we don't just talk about it, we show it working. See, you can stick that in here. And you know what's dangerous about this particular connector? Watch this. I've done this one time and it wasn't even on my plane. Look, you can plug that in backward. That's dangerous. Positive to negative, that's when fires happen. So be careful, use your best judgment, and don't get ahead of yourself. I did that to a friend's Futura 80 and I almost killed it. And then we fixed it and it was fine. I didn't kill it. There was a huge spark and there were some burned wires, and then we redid it and it worked fine. So yeah.
Then you got lucky.
I got lucky.
Yeah.
I got lucky. All right, so let's talk about this for a minute. First, you wanna have that on, stick down, vertical. What does the manual have to say about this? Anything in particular?
Press function keys 1 and 2 simultaneously to shut down the product.
Okay, right here. It's got a beep.
Okay.
Okay.
You have to remember that then.
And then sticks down and in to arm.
Push the power switch, yep, down and in. On at the same time, down and in.
Can you read what this name is? Is that Kudai?
Kutai. We've had one of these before.
Okay. Power's off, power's back on. Only because I pressed the function keys. All right, so Velcro. Velcro's gonna go here. Then I'm gonna plug this in, right? But there is one other thing I wanna talk about. Now, I don't know how the low voltage protection or low voltage cutoff is going to operate on this machine. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab what is known as a voltage alarm. Okay, so this voltage alarm, it's not included. See back here, it says minus 1S, 2S, 3S, 4S, and so on and so forth. This is a Predator product made by FMS, but you can get them from a million different places. And we have supplies, the supplies tab has it.
Yes, it is.
So bprc.me is our website. You can go /supplies and you can find it, or just go to bprc.me and supplies is right up at the top, okay? Go to supplies tab, you can get something like this if you want. And then the way this works is you plug in the negative, it's over here, the black, plug it in like that. And then you can set an alarm at a certain point. So so we got it at 3.6, that's pretty good. So if this starts to alarm, then I know like, hey, I gotta land, okay? So now the other thing too is, let's talk about sub 250 status. I guarantee you this is over 250. I can tell because I can tell how much it weighs. If it's sub 250, you can fly it without a remote ID, okay? If you're not at a FRIA. If you're at a FRIA, then I'm just telling you what the legal stuff is and you can do what you want with it. I don't care. I hope it's sub 250, but I don't think it is. I also have my alarm in here. I'm just gonna do it unplugged right now. Excuse me.
187.
187, so it's sub 250, sweet. So that means that this is legal to fly without a remote ID module, okay? If you don't know what remote ID is like a transponder for your remote controlled airplane, okay? Which is absolutely ludicrous that it is even a thing. But let's live in the reality. This is a remote ID. This thing right here, you could buy that for like 30 bucks. This is another remote ID, that's like about 100 bucks, but it's got some different features that will work with Spectrum gear. Just two examples, they do exist in time and space. If you fly in a FRIA, then a FRIA, which is a federally recognized, it's an FAA recognized identification area, which as usual, leave it up to the government to use an acronym to describe another acronym while calling out other acronyms. It's just the way they do it.
But if you are just buying this for your kid for their birthday,
it's legal.
You can take it to your local park and you can fly it and you're in compliance.
Right. And just know before you fly.com, I don't want to talk about legalese. They've paid us $0 and they've taken a lot of freedoms from us that they should have never. That's ridiculous, ludicrousness. But just remember, any bad behavior that we do in our hobby is going to eventually come full circle. So just be careful what you do. Okay. All right. Getting back to the point.
Is that gonna fit in there?
I don't know if this alarm is gonna fit. And by the way, this alarm doesn't come with the plane. It's not part of the plane at all, or the VTOL. So I'm just gonna, I might end up not being able to fit it There might be room. Nah, it's too tall. I have a smaller one. Let me see if I can use, I have one that's not 8S. I think it goes up to like 4S.
So it's a little skinnier.
Yeah, that one is definitely gonna be a little easier to fit in there. Might take a second to find it, come back. Okay, so this one doesn't have the push button on the top, and you can see it's just, it takes up less space. It's also lighter. This is only 4S, and it's got a predetermined voltage alarm, so you can just plug it in, and it'll do a similar function, but it's just smaller, okay? So this one might fit. Okay, so it's just gonna give you green lights if it's good and red lights if it's not. Okay, so let's see if we can get that in there. Yeah, that looks like that's gonna fit, okay? Now I am gonna just verify my stick is down. I'm in vertical, okay? I'll plug this in. Wait for a second. That's a pretty fast startup process. I need to get this in the back. Ooh, I don't know if that's gonna fit. Folks, sorry, I'm trying to make this the easiest process for you all when you go to do it, but I do want you to get the most out of your experience, and part of that is not having basically a helicopter that runs out of power halfway through a flight. Okay, I don't think we're gonna be able to fit it. I don't think so. Unfortunately, folks, it doesn't fit. Now you know. I would still definitely have one of those in your repertoire, okay? So you can see there's some lights that are flashing on it that are white in color. And the other thing too is, since we've done this a number of times, camera crew, do we trust it enough to go ahead and take off here?
Probably.
You sure? Okay. If you're comfortable, I'm comfortable. All right, so this is how this is gonna work. There's a manual, it's gonna tell us how to take off, okay? There's some lights shining from the bottom. If it were dark out, you'd be able to see that stuff through the body, okay? So now let's look at what the takeoff procedure is. It looks like you're gonna go in into the center for something. Okay, push the power switch on the remote control, and at the same time, push the left control lever down. Okay, so, and that starts the product. Okay. What is this?
Left and right control levers are 45 lower left. The product is adjusted horizontally.
So what this is saying, guys, is that if you go down into the inside, that's for vertical, okay? Right? Mm-hmm. And then this is for horizontal. So it's a little bit confusing. Oh, look, and then if you keep going later in the manual, it looks like it's talking about kind of the procedure, okay? Hey, it's over here, right there. So yeah, so this is pretty typical on these Chinese instructions. They're a little bit confusing. So what we're gonna do is, I just wanna make sure that I can arrest the power quickly if there would be something go wrong, okay? So normally when we take off an aircraft like this inside the house, I don't know how much clearance we need because I'm not sure how high up it's gonna jump. So I'm gonna just put it this way. Cam crew's gonna come over here, and we've got plenty of room to get out of the way if something goes wrong. So we're gonna go sticks down and in, right? Mm-hmm. Oh wait, I need to make sure I'm in vertical mode. So I'm gonna go back to vertical mode. I have to arm it, right? So sticks down and in?
Sticks down and in.
Okay, so sticks down and in. Nah, I don't trust it. I think we're gonna go outside and try it.
Okay.
All right, so obviously we need to wrap this up. I don't trust this thing until I see how it works. And since those motors are pointed this way, I don't wanna just give into it. I'm gonna go outside, we'll do it outside, and then we got a little bit of room in case something goes sideways on us or vertical, depending on how it goes. I believe we're just gonna be sticks down and in, and then it's gonna arm. But if not, we'll have to press the F1 and F2 buttons. And I fear I may have to press this while going into vertical, but we'll tell you exactly the process. Here on Brian Phillips RC, I want you guys to not have the guesswork that we sometimes enjoy in front of the camera, okay? Because our success is your success, and our failures, you can laugh and point, okay? It's really fun. But at the end of the day, if you want to support Brian Phillips RC in return for having walked through some of these procedures with you, look no further than the links in the video description below. It's the easiest way to support Brian Phillips RC is to smash the like button, click the bell for notifications, and if you decide to buy something, get it from the links. That's how we make a few bucks on these reviews. If you don't buy from the links, we make nothing except for a little bit of ad revenue, which is like maybe 1 penny every 100th view. So it's just very limited. Guys, thanks for being here. We really appreciate it. We want to grow this hobby. We want to help you guys find success. And if that resonates with you, then you'll want to subscribe and be part of the Brian Phillips RC group, okay? So check it out. Links are in the video description below for brianphillipsrc.com. That's where you can find other competitive offerings that are similar to this, different sizes, different classifications, and also every other plane that you can see in this room, helicopter, VTOL, quad. We always say that. But at the end of the day, we usually do fixed wing here on this channel. So check it out. Links are in the video description below. Or you could just head over to bprc.me. That's the easiest way, so you'd have to spell out brianphillipsrc.com, but it's the same place. Also, if you want to support us in other ways, we have Patreon for monthly support, YouTube members for monthly support, and YouTube Super Thanks for one-time donations, and PayPal for one-time donations, as well as a PO box. If you need to send us something, but just make sure you hit us up on an email if and when you do that, because we don't check it often. Hopefully we answered all your questions, and special thanks to our partners that bring us all these products to review for you here on Brian Phillips RC. There's so much more right around the corner. We hope you'll be back for more. Thanks for watching. YouTube, it's Brian Phillips. Look at this. It's a vertical takeoff or landing aircraft. We're gonna see if it's any good right now. And as you can see, it is set up for what I would call horizontal flight in vertical mode. We're gonna show you exactly how to do this because this plane is a little bit confusing. That's vertical to me, but according to this device, that is what they mean by vertical, 3D. And they mean horizontal as in horizontal. So we're gonna show you the flight right now. We're gonna do a little outside flight if all goes to plan, but for now we'll just take off 2S 1000 milliamp hour, 6 down and in, arms it, and then we'll take off vertically. There it is. As you can see, it flies, it moves around. It's got a little bit of a slip to it. You can trim the aircraft, and that gets it going where you want. So it's pretty easy to fly. There is a high and low rate switch. So in higher rates, it's a little quicker, but then you can switch to a vertical takeoff. And just real quick, I'll go up here so you guys can see we're not in dead still calmness here. We've got a fan that's blowing above us. And I'm just gonna show you what it looks like when we switch to the vertical flight mode, what I would call vertical flight mode. This is actually horizontal flight mode, okay? So we're gonna switch this switch down to 3D mode. There it is. And then it stabilizes eventually, and there you have it. So just remember, the ups are not incredibly strong. It does take a second for it to respond, but once it's flying like this, you can lean it forward and you can lean it back. And I'll switch to the other rate mode now. And then you just fly it like you would fly a normal quad, and it's pretty easy going. Now, whether or not you can land and take off in this mode is yet to be determined. Let's see what we can do here. Now, keep in mind, to kill it, we have to press both of these triggers here, okay? So I'm just gonna go ahead and try to land it right on the counter here, if it'll let us do it. And I killed it because when it flipped forward, it shot right off the counter. Now, I'm just gonna tell you this. We have used a number of different VTOLs in the past. This one seems a little bit light on power. That's unusual. It's also got a 2S battery, and I think some of the bigger ones we've done were either 2S 1300 or 3S 1300, but you'll notice the props are still forward. I'm gonna switch to vertical mode. When you're in vertical mode, that's how you take off. Now, I'm gonna just demonstrate. We'll go to 3D mode and show you trying to take off. This is not gonna work, I don't think. And so I'm just gonna lay it down right here. Should give us plenty of room to get off the ground. So I'm gonna go sticks down and in. And they actually suggested in the manual down and to the left. I wonder if that's where we have to do that. So down and to the left.
Maybe. It was not clear.
It is very unclear. Okay, so down and to the left, it doesn't appear to start. So I'm gonna go down into the inside together and just see if it works. Okay, so trying now. Okay, so it does allow you to take off vertical, which is good. because I think that's kind of one of the cool factors, is that if you can take off vertically like that, okay? So we do seem to be having a little bit better time of it than before, but it's definitely got a lot of drift. Now I'm gonna switch to 3D vertical flight rather. It's got a slow transition, and yes, you can see some ailerons and or elevators, so telebons there on the back of the wing, and they do actually work in a forward flight mode. But here I'm gonna try to land again. So bringing it down to the ground, holding down on the sticks, and it's still running. Eventually it stops, okay? This is not a spring return to center type throttle like we see on some of the GPS heli drones. This obviously is in a GPS heli drone. It's got a flight controller, but I don't believe it has anything to do with GPS. There's no downward looking sensors in either of the two modes of flight. But also when you're ready to go into the 6G mode, which is the center mode, you have to switch it to that and press this button momentarily to actually go from vertical hovering to forward flight, okay? And it does fly fast. We'll demonstrate that, but we can't demonstrate that inside. I doubt we have a whole lot of extra flight time left, and that's the other thing that this plane does that it could do better, and that is these lights change from blue to a different color when it's low. They switch from, I think it's green, and then eventually, or maybe that's just the mode. It changes to red.
Red when it's
but then
low
it's
battery.
red flashing when it's like low.
But
we couldn't
see
see. We couldn't tell because honestly, it's not a big enough distinction when the sun is out. So now if you're flying this in the dark, you'll easily be able to see what's going on. But flying in the daytime, you're not gonna be able to tell. So my apprehension about this model right now is that people are gonna get it thinking it's gonna work like previous VTOLs that we've experienced and reviewed. So let's go out this spot and we'll actually show the people from some altitude, just in case.
Just in case?
Just in case.
Okay.
So we're gonna go out here.
Great.
We're gonna see if we can continue this extravaganza. We'll take off in what they call vertical mode, which is goofy, because like to me, that's not vertical.
No.
Vertical would be this,
Yeah,
okay?
I agree.
So, but we are taking off in a vertical mode. It's just that it's laid down, okay? All right, so in order to arm, sticks down and in, let it warm up, and then up you go. And as you can see, you have to really hold that stick to get it to go up. Now, I'm gonna switch to the middle mode, okay? Middle mode and click, and there it goes. Now it's gonna fly like an airplane, okay? There is an elevator involved. The elevator is, oh, and it's dead, okay?
That was it.
So, thoughts on this model. You're not gonna know when the battery's about to die, so don't even try. It needs a bigger battery, but if you get a bigger battery, it won't quite fit. And then when you go into vertical flight mode, it wants to fall over because it's too heavy. But ironically, we did try it on 3S as well, and it does work. Kinda.
Kind of.
So in closing, we have some winners and some losers. And I'm not gonna say that this isn't for anybody, but I will honestly say this one does not perform to our normal expectations in most ways. Here are the ways that we expect it to perform. We expect it to do the things they say it's gonna do, vertical takeoff and landing. It does technically do that, but it does it in such a confusing way that it's almost like it's not doing it. Mm-hmm. Secondly, does it look good? It does look good. Thirdly, is it strong enough to survive a couple of drops? Yeah, but it really doesn't do a great job of that, okay? One of my servos popped out, so I just glued it back in while I was waiting for the battery to charge between clips, okay? So at the end of the day, is this the thing you want? I guess you're gonna have to be the judge of that. We have done other VTOLs in the past that have far outperformed this vehicle. And so I would suggest if there's winners and losers, I would maybe not call this a winner. Let's just say it that way. So check it out. If you want to buy one, links are in the video description below. You can prove me wrong. Maybe you think it was too windy, or maybe there's too much altitude, or we did something stupid. All possibilities. But I am going to say this. We've had a number of VTOLs that have been incredibly fun and incredibly successful. And there's been a couple that have not been that good. And it's one of the rare E-flite products that did not pass our testing. Mm-hmm. That thing was
terrible.
Yeah.
It was like one of the worst that we ever flew. But we've had a couple Chinese ones that have been great. And vertical meant vertical. So, I don't know.
Or at least it was way easier to understand what they were calling what. This was not clear at all.
This was not. So guys, hopefully our flight footage will satisfy your needs, but I'm just gonna go with, yeah, maybe not on this one. Anyway, links in the video description below. If you wanna see the competitive offerings that we have reviewed in the past, check out brianphillipsrc.com, and you can go to sort by type, and then you'll find them, what, like in helis or VTOLs? We actually have a VTOL
category.
But we do have a couple of different offerings that we've had good luck with. I just expect more from a product, and so I would say this one is probably a no-go in my book, okay? And we say that very carefully because we have done so many great products over the years. There's probably been 5 to 10 of them that we've said, don't do it. I would say this one, buyer beware if you're gonna get it. But if you wanna support Brian Phillips RC and you decide you wanna try it out, go for it. It might be okay inside of a closed environment, but it doesn't even really hold its position very good in that, okay? So when you get it, don't be surprised if it performs poorly, okay? All right, that's all we got for you today. Hopefully the next one around the corner is a lot better, and I suspect it will be. But leave your comments down below if you think we screwed something up, or maybe there's something we could do to improve our circumstances. Or if you like the other one a lot better, let us know. We want to hear your feedback. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Come back for more.